All right, what is up, Utah fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest, and Utah just picked up a transfer in a running back in Mike Washington from New Mexico State. Again, it's a running back, and he is 6'2", 215 pounds. He went for 725 yards last season on 157 carries and 8 touchdowns. The guy's averaging 4.6 yards a carry. I'm excited to dive in. I'm excited to break him down, guys. Before we get into it, make sure you smash that like button. That's going to help get the video out to more Utah fans. Also, comment down below. Like I said, we're going to dive in. We're going to break down the numbers. We're going to talk about the guy. So drop a comment in the chat. Give me your opinion. Do you think he's an every down back? Do you think he's coming in to be our number one back this year? Do you think he'll be worked into the rotation? I want to know your thoughts. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, we put out a ton of Utah Utes football content. So if you're into that sort of thing, make sure you stick around. And let's go ahead and dive in and check out Mike Washington. Okay, guys, so let's take a look at Mike Washington's career here. Like I said, he's a big power back, 6'2", 215 pounds, big bruising guy. Um, re- from what I'm reading, he has a real good one cut ability to just hit the hole hard and turn it into something, break tackles and fight for yards between the tackles. And I think the real impact this guy could have is in those goal line and short yardage situations where we did struggle quite a bit last year. Not that we didn't have anyone that could do it. I thought Mike Mitchell did an okay job, but it did feel like a role where we were missing a guy. And you look at Mike Washington here, guys, check out the numbers. So last year, 157 carries, 725 yards, 4.6 per carry, 8 touchdowns. And what I like here, guys, is a long of 47, and the year before a long of 49, and the year before that a long of 92. And there's not one year where he's averaging less than 4 yards a carry. So you would like to see it a good amount above 4 yards a carry, right? Like it's not quite where you get super excited about the yards per carry, but it isn't bad, right? It's pretty decent. And these 3 years, 2021 through 2023, were at Buffalo, and this most recent year was at New Mexico State, where he was in tandem with Seth McGowan, and they were a pretty deadly running back tandem, going well over 1,500 or 1,000 yards between the two of them. So pretty deadly duo between these guys. Like I said, New Mexico State most recently, and before that he was at Buffalo for most of his career. So that's kind of what we're getting in this guy. And I saw somewhere that his longest career run was 25 yards, but I don't know where they got that, because here it's showing he had way longer runs than that. So that's what we're getting right out the face value. And now let's go ahead and dive in. Let's check out the 24/7 sports profile next. Okay, guys, and here he is, Mike Washington. And you can see here he is not ranked as a transfer. And coming out of high school, he was a 2-star prospect. So uh, I think the story's kind of laying itself out here, where I don't think we're bringing in Mike Washington to be a game breaker. Could he be? For sure. And I'm going to touch on my final thoughts, so I won't go too into it here. But I think what we're getting here, guys, is a really mean power back that has that high end ability. I think a fair comparison might be like a Tavion Thomas, right? Where it's a guy that not a lot of teams are looking to take the shot at, right? And we're getting a cool opportunity to bring in a guy that has performed pretty well, right? We're looking at between 4 and 5 yards a carry at the G5 level. You'd like it a little higher than that, but overall, he's a proven solid running back instead of a young guy that hasn't done anything. And I think what we'll get is a solid running back in this guy. I want to go ahead and look at the PFF grades, though. Like I said here, guys, it's, two-star player coming out of high school, and not much hype in the transfer portal. I'm not trying to be overwhelming with it. I'm also just trying to be a little realistic. But let's check out the PFF grades. I think that'll give us a deeper dive and get us a better idea of what we're getting in Mike Washington. Okay, guys, so here is his 24/7 sports profile, and this is the 2024 season. You take a look here. So these are his rushing numbers. He hasn't done much receiving wise, so we won't look much at that. But you take a look down here, guys, as we break it down at a deeper level. A 71 rushing grade, pretty poor fumble grade right there. But offensive grade is 66.4. And again, just being fairly critical, that you would like to see that higher, especially considering he's coming from the G5. But this is something that I think should get us all excited. So look how many carries this guy had. 154 carries. And look how many of them went for more than 10 yards. 20 carries of 10 plus yards on 154 carries. Now, this should get you kind of excited, right? He 24 carries or 20 carries of 10 plus yards on 154 carries. Now that means that every eighth carry he's going for 10 plus yards. That is something that would be very beneficial for this team. That is a really good number. And then let me just yards after contact. Okay. And yards after contact, 477 of his 697 yards are after contact. And again, this is from PFF. Sometimes their stats are a little different than what you see on ESPN, but I do trust what they say. And then you look over here, he had 10 carries that went for 15 plus yards. I would actually say diving a little deeper into these numbers, I'm pretty happy with what we're seeing here. He feels like he could be a bit of a steal, right? Like I said, not a ton in the receiving game. You look right over here. 18 targets, 10 receptions, 91 yards. So, he is a bit of a receiving weapon, but nothing crazy. Yards per route run, 0.86, right? It's not what he's coming in for. But definitely an explosive player. Like we mentioned, guys, a big guy, 6'2", 215 pounds. So stick around this last minute or two. I'll give you guys my final take and my final thoughts on Mike Washington. Okay, guys, final thoughts. And you were kind of seeing me, taking the information live here basically during this video. I think it's better than what some of the surface level stuff looks. So, like I said, 4.5, 4.6 yards per carry at New Mexico State, 66 PFF grade last year. So, nothing bad there, right? Like solid, like average to above average PFF grade, solid yards per carry. But I'd say this. So looking deeper at the stats, and I'm going to reference this number, he yards after contact was 477 out of 697 yards. So let me grab a calculator. So 477 divided by 697. That means 68.4% of this guy's yards came after contact. And then you double that up with the fact that he had 10 plus or he had 20 10 plus yard rushes, which means a lot of those must have come after contact. And of those, 10 went for 15 plus yards. So I'd say this surface level, you got to dig a little deeper to find the gem in this guy. But I think we could be getting a bit of a steal here. Expectation wise, I wouldn't expect him to come in and be our guy next year. I don't think we should stop looking for running backs in the offseason. Hopefully we can get, bring in some more guys to this revamped running back room. But I think it's a really good start. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I actually really like some of these numbers. Don't like the fumble number, right? How many times did he fumble last year? 4 fumbles. It's a little high. Wit will rip your heart out if you fumble 4 times. But I mean, feels very similar to a Tavion Thomas. I mentioned it earlier, right? And as bad as the end of the Tavion Thomas story went more for him than for us, there were parts of that Tavion Thomas story. Like, remember that Stanford game where that guy just destroyed that Stanford defense? We had like 35 points by the end of the second quarter. Just wild stuff. So I would say this guy feels to me like the floors. It's a high floor player. I think that's a good way to put it. If he can figure out the fumbles, if he can't figure out the fumbles, he's not going to play much. But he's a guy that could get in there, could earn a spot in the running back rotation, and I would actually expect him to if we're bringing him in as a transfer. And he's not just some guy. Like, it's like 697 yards, a good amount of yards. And like I mentioned, you dig deeper, you'll like the numbers. So I'm excited for Mike Washington. If just giving my thoughts on what he'll do next year, I'd say most likely scenario, he's a guy that gets about 400 rushing yards and maybe 3 to 5 rushing touchdowns, like short yardage, goal line stuff. But also a guy that we get into the rotation because he does break tackles. He does make stuff happen if he can figure out the fumble situation. Um, but high end, I see this could be like a Tavion Thomas. I mean, I like the numbers at a deeper level once you dig into them. So uh, I like Mike Washington. Before we get out of here, smash the like button. That'll help get the video out to more Utah fans. Also, I think this is a really fun guy after breaking him down. Honestly, there was an article I read that said his longest rush of his career was 20 yards, but all the other data does not show that. So yeah, like the data on PFF shows his long rushes are the exact same as what we saw on ESPN. So I don't know who wrote that article. So I want to know what you guys think. What's his floor? What's his ceiling? Like, how excited are you guys about him? And if you haven't already, subscribed to the channel. We put out a ton of Utah Utes football content. I am out of here. Go Utes.